Chosen one, you did something your past never prepared you to do. The same moment that used to make you chase, explain, panic, or betray your own knowing came back one more time. This time, it could not produce the same person. Do not rush past that. The outside of your life may still look almost identical, but the trajectory underneath it is already different. You have been waiting for some enormous sign that the plan changed. Maybe you expected a door to open overnight, or an answer to remove every doubt. But the first sign was quieter. It was your response. You reached an old doorway, and you did not walk through it. You were handed the old script, and you did not read your lines. There was no thunder when it happened. No crowd saw the cost. Maybe you did not send the message. Maybe you stopped explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Maybe you walked away from a place where the old version of you would have stayed and begged to be chosen. The moment looked small, but it revealed something enormous. That is why this season can feel strange. You expected transformation to feel powerful. Instead, it may feel quiet. Part of you feels empty because the old chaos is gone and the new evidence has not arrived yet. Chosen one, silence is not always proof that nothing happened. Sometimes silence is what remains when a pattern loses the reaction that kept it alive. That space fools many people. They change, nothing happens fast enough, and they decide the transformation was imaginary. So they text again. They return again. They explain again. They reopen the door because the hallway feels lonely. Without realizing it, they begin feeding the future they had started to leave. But look at what has happened in you. A trigger came back. Your body remembered the old response. Your mind knew the old route. Still, somewhere inside that familiar pressure, you paused long enough to choose differently. That pause matters because the old pattern is no longer automatic. It may still call you, but it does not own you. Think about one moment from the last few weeks. A moment when the old you would have chased, argued, collapsed, or given up. What did you do instead? Do not search for something impressive. Search for something true. Growth often hides inside the response nobody else noticed. You may still have the same bank balance. The same people may still see you through an old lens. None of that erases the change that already happened, where every new direction begins. Your outer world can take time to catch up, because consequences often arrive after patterns have been repeated. So measure this new direction, first, by what no longer controls you. Measure it by the message you did not send, the argument you did not continue, the compromise you did not make, the door you did not reopen, just because loneliness made old pain feel safer than unfamiliar peace. If you can identify that moment, hold this sentence inside you. The pattern ends here. It ends because you gave an old moment a response it had never received from you before. And that leads to the question that matters now. If your response changed, why does the world around you still look so similar? Why does the new path feel real inside you, while the evidence outside still looks like yesterday? The answer begins with something simple. Your life is not only shaped by the doors that appear, it is also shaped by the responses you repeat when those doors appear. A repeated response becomes a direction. A direction repeated long enough becomes a trajectory. And that trajectory can feel like fate when it is really a pattern that gathered momentum. A message arrives and you answer immediately because silence makes you anxious. Someone withdraws and you chase because distance feels like rejection. An opportunity appears and you shrink because failure feels safer than being seen. Repeated often enough, those responses begin building a road beneath your feet. That road is what I want to call the old trajectory. It is not a prophecy. It is not a curse. It is the future. Your familiar responses are most likely to keep producing if nothing inside you changes. Many chosen ones mistake repetition for destiny. But look closer. The same result often keeps appearing because the same trigger keeps receiving the same response. That does not mean every hardship is self-created. It does not mean injustice is your fault. It means there is one place where your power becomes visible. You may not control the trigger, but you can begin changing what the trigger is allowed to produce in you. That matters because every pattern survives by being fed. Every different response interrupts the certainty that tomorrow must look like yesterday. This is where many people misunderstand transformation. They think change begins when the result arrives, but often the deeper change begins earlier, when the same pressure reaches you and no longer receives the same obedience. There is an old spiritual idea inside this. Renewal is not merely feeling inspired. The Greek word metanoia points toward a change of mind and direction. A changed mind becomes visible when an old moment produces a new choice. So when you ask whether you really changed, do not begin with the outcome, begin with the pattern. What used to happen when you felt abandoned? What did you do when someone doubted you? What happened when you were tired, lonely, or afraid? Then ask the harder question. What happened the last time that same feeling returned? If the answer is different, pay attention. Maybe you rested instead of sabotaging yourself. Maybe you told the truth without begging to be understood. Maybe you stayed silent without using silence as punishment. Maybe you walked away without secretly waiting for someone to chase you. These are not dramatic signs, but they are measurable evidence. Discernment still matters. Not every withdrawal is wisdom. Not every silence is strength. Sometimes avoidance can disguise itself as peace. The test is whether your new response moves you closer to truth, responsibility, self-respect, and peace without requiring you to abandon yourself. Chosen one, you did not defeat the future. You stopped rehearsing the past. That victory is quieter, but it gives you something you can repeat. You cannot force tomorrow to reward you. You can decide what kind of person tomorrow is going to meet. Your old life may still appear around you for a while. Roads do not disappear the first time you stop walking them. Familiar people may expect the old version, but every returning trigger gives you another chance to confirm the direction you already began. So write this into your spirit. I choose differently. Differently when the loneliness returns. Differently when the apology does not come. Differently when the evidence is slow. Differently when nobody is watching. Because one new response creates a point of divergence, but the next test reveals whether that divergence can become identity. What happens when the trigger returns a second time, and the old version of you expects to be invited back? The second return of the trigger is where you discover whether change was a moment or a new way of being. The first time, you may have been exhausted enough to walk away. The second time, it can arrive dressed as comfort. It can sound reasonable. It can sound familiar. That is why the next response matters. This is what I call the unrehearsed response. It is the response your old pattern never trained you to give. You are not following a script. You are not repeating what fear practiced for years. The trigger arrives, but something inside you creates a pause. That pause can feel too ordinary to respect. You may not feel powerful. You may simply notice that you no longer need to explain every detail. You do not need to win the argument. You do not need to force someone to understand. You do not need to rescue a situation that keeps asking you to abandon yourself. Growth often looks like reduced compulsion. The old urge can still appear, but it is no longer the only voice in the room. You can feel the impulse to chase and still stay where you are. You can feel anger and still choose restraint. You can feel fear and still make a responsible decision. That is increased choice. But chosen one, this needs discernment. Not every quiet response is wisdom. Sometimes fear hides inside silence. Sometimes avoidance pretends to be peace. So ask a better question. Did this response move you closer to truth, responsibility, self-respect, and peace? Did it allow you to remain honest without becoming cruel? If the answer is yes, you are not merely escaping discomfort. You are practicing a different way of being. Imagine a message appearing on your screen from someone who once controlled your nervous system. Months ago, your chest would tighten before you opened it. This time, you read the words, you breathe. Your body does not hand them the steering wheel. That is freedom in a form many people overlook. Sometimes it is discovering that one notification can no longer rearrange your entire inner world. The message may be the same, but the person receiving it is not. Bring one recent trigger to mind now. Just notice it. Remember what happened in your chest, your jaw, your stomach, and your breathing. Then compare that response with the way your body reacted 6 months ago. What changed? Maybe you recovered in 10 minutes instead of 2 days. Maybe you said no without rehearsing an apology for hours. Maybe you stopped checking whether someone had seen your message. Maybe you returned to your work instead of letting one interaction consume your day. Small changes can carry real information. The point is not to become impossible to hurt. The point is to become harder for old pain to command. You are allowed to feel disappointment without turning it into self-betrayal. You are allowed to miss someone without reopening a harmful door. You are allowed to feel uncertain without surrendering your direction. This is where the new trajectory begins, becoming identity. Not because the trigger disappears, but because you keep meeting it as someone new. A single response creates divergence. Repeated responses create evidence. Eventually, what once required enormous effort begins to feel normal. And yet there is a danger here. People can change internally, then panic because the outside world does not reward them fast enough. They assume the new response failed. Then they walk backward, not because the old road became right, but because the new road stayed quiet. That silence has a name. And once you understand it, you will stop mistaking delayed evidence for a failed transformation. Chosen one, this silence has a name. It is the evidence lag. It is the space between the moment you change and the moment your outer life begins, reflecting that change. Most people are not prepared for this space. They expect a new decision to create new evidence immediately. When it does not, they assume the decision was wrong. But your current reality can still be carrying the output of older choices. A new boundary does not erase loneliness in one night. A new work ethic does not change your bank balance by morning. A new standard does not remove every person who benefited from the old one. The outside can remain familiar while the inside is becoming different. This is where patience becomes practical. You are not being asked to deny what is real. You are being asked to stop letting old reality define your next response. The evidence in front of you may be accurate, but it may also be late. It can describe what your past produced, without describing what your present choices are beginning to build. Think about a field after new seed has been planted. For a while, the surface looks unchanged. The soil does not announce every movement underneath it. You would be foolish to dig everything up each morning just to prove something is happening. Yet emotionally, that is exactly what many people do with their lives. They reopen the conversation to check whether the other person finally understands. They abandon the routine because the result has not appeared. They return to old habits because new habits have not paid them yet. They call this realism. Often, it is simply impatience wearing a serious face. Chosen one, there is a better way to measure the change. Use what I call the divergence test. Ask yourself 3 questions. What trigger used to control me? What was my automatic response before? What did I do the last time that trigger appeared? Do not answer with a prophecy. Answer with behavior. Maybe rejection used to make you disappear for a week. This time, you felt the pain and still completed the work. Maybe silence from someone used to make you chase. This time, you let silence remain silence and returned your attention to your own life. Maybe criticism used to make you prove yourself for hours. This time, you listened for anything useful and released the rest. That is data. That is evidence you can actually observe. It does not guarantee a particular outcome, but it shows that the old trigger no longer has exclusive access to your behavior. For the chosen one who has heard 100 messages promising that a new season is coming, this distinction matters. You do not need another prediction. You need a way to see whether transformation is already becoming visible in your conduct. That is more grounded than waiting for a dramatic sign. So hold the new line. Hold it when your feelings become noisy. Hold it when the bank account still looks old. Hold it when the room is quiet. Hold it when somebody from the past tests whether they can still reach the same version of you. And there is another layer to this that spiritual language often misses. Some people have changed what they believe. They have changed how they respond, yet they still wake up foggy, scattered, and unable to hold a clear thought long enough to act on what they know. They can feel the new direction, but they cannot always access the mental clarity needed to move through it. Researchers have spent years studying how different parts of the human brain work together, and later I am going to return to why that matters here. For now, hold one question. What if your spirit has already stopped repeating the old life, but the receiver you use to recognize the new one is still operating below its best? Chosen one, this is where the title becomes clearer. You did not create a new plan by overpowering God. You did not force heaven to rewrite something it failed to foresee. You created a new trajectory by becoming someone who could give the same world a different response. Your power is not in controlling every event. It is in refusing to keep supplying old events with the same version of you. The past knew how to predict you because your reactions were familiar. Fear knew what button to press. Loneliness knew what door you would reopen. Shame knew how quickly you would shrink. But something changed. The old instruction arrived, and you did not obey it. That is the point of divergence. One road continues through repeated access, repeated attention, repeated interpretation, and repeated reaction. The other begins when you stop giving those patterns the fuel they expect. You do not need to destroy the past. You need to stop feeding it. You stop checking. You stop explaining. You stop revisiting the same wound for a different ending. You stop using pain as proof that you should return to what caused it. Think of Abraham leaving what was familiar without being shown every mile in advance. The power of the movement was not that he possessed a complete map. It was that he did not require the old place to approve the direction before he moved. He left what was known and trusted the next faithful step. That does not mean every unknown road is sacred. Discernment still matters. Responsibility still matters. But there are seasons when demanding complete certainty becomes another way of staying loyal to what you have already outgrown. Perhaps the deeper evidence is that you became unavailable to a pattern that once survived through you. Survival gets you through the old road. Transformation changes, whether you keep walking it. So, when the old road calls, remember what gives it life. Your attention feeds it. Your repeated interpretation feeds it. Your automatic reaction feeds it. The old road does not need your agreement. It only needs your participation. This is why the sentence matters now. The old road ends here. Not because every consequence disappears today. Not because every relationship changes. It ends because you are no longer willing to keep producing tomorrow from yesterday. But here is the harder question. Why can you understand all of this, agree with it, and even live part of it, then still wake up mentally foggy and unable to see the next step? Why can the spirit feel ready while the mind feels scattered? Earlier, I asked you to hold a question about the receiver. I waited because a solution only makes sense after the shape of the problem becomes clear. You now understand the old trajectory. You understand the new response. You understand the lag between change and evidence. Now we have reached the missing piece. What if clarity does not fail because your faith is weak? What if part of the struggle has a practical address in the way your mind is functioning and coordinating information? Knowing the new road exists is not the same as being able to recognize every step on it. The next revelation is about that gap, and it changes the way you understand the fog you have been blaming on yourself. The gap has a name. I call it the receiver gap. You can know what matters and still lose the thought halfway through the day. You can feel called toward a decision and still spend hours switching between tabs, second-guessing yourself, and forgetting what felt clear that morning. That does not automatically mean you are lazy. It does not automatically mean your faith is weak. The principle here is simple. Spiritual conviction and mental clarity are not the same thing. You can have direction and still struggle with execution. So here is the plain truth. The old trajectory changed because your response changed. The new trajectory becomes stronger when that response becomes consistent. And consistency is harder when your attention is scattered, your thinking is foggy, and every decision feels heavier than it should. That is the why. The divergence test is the what. And the person using it is no longer someone waiting to be chosen. You are the pattern breaker who stayed different. The direction may already be different. The question is whether your mind is clear enough to keep recognizing it. Earlier, I told you I would return to the research clue. This is where it belongs. Dr. Roger Sperry received the Nobel Prize in 1981 for discoveries involving the specialized functions of the two cerebral hemispheres. That work helped shape later thinking about hemispheric function and coordination. The team behind the resource I found builds its explanation around that idea. They describe a targeted auditory sequence designed to support what they call whole brain activation and neural synchronization. Two customer stories stood out to me. A woman from California described living with constant fog and a sense that life was happening around her instead of through her. After using the sequence, she reported feeling clearer and more present in her marriage. A man from Texas described something similar from a different angle. He carried business pressure, family responsibility, and the feeling that his mind was always partially occupied. After using the sequence consistently, he said his thinking felt clearer and decisions came with less friction. The product is called the Genius Switch. It is an 8-minute digital audio sequence designed by the team associated with Dr. Daniel Barone. Their instructions are simple. Use headphones, close your eyes, relax, and listen once a day. The company positions it as neural sync technology aimed at supporting coordination between the hemispheres. It is not presented as a replacement for medical care, sleep, disciplined work, prayer, or wise decision-making. This is why the identity frame matters. The Genius Switch is not something you need in order to be chosen. It is a tool for the person who has already done meaningful inner work and wants to explore one additional way of supporting clarity. The tool does not create your calling. At most, it is meant to support the receiver carrying it. The current offer, described by the official page, lists the program at $49 with a page price of $39. It also includes 4 digital bonuses: a guided visualization, a smart grocery shopping guide, a classic manifestation book, and a printable 5 Habits infographic. The offer also states that purchase includes lifetime access and a money-back guarantee. Read those terms on the official page before deciding, because pricing and conditions can change. Do not buy because a moment feels emotionally intense. Buy only if the details make sense after you have looked at them clearly. The product team says the current price may increase, but I would not build your decision on fear of missing out. The real question is simpler. Does this tool address a problem you genuinely recognize, and is the cost reasonable for you? One more thing matters. Similar names and audio tracks can appear in many places online. The product file identifies the official page as the verified source for this specific program. If you decide to investigate it, use the link in the description or the pinned comment so you can review the actual terms and claims yourself. If something in this receiver gap described your experience, the resource is there for you to examine. No pressure, no spiritual test. Read the information, decide from clarity, and let your choice remain your own. The tool does not replace God. It does not replace obedience. It does not make a wise decision for you. A tool can support clarity, but the heart still has to choose what it will do with that clarity. Buying anything does not make you more chosen. It does not. You are not standing outside some spiritual gate waiting for a product to let you through. If the resource helps you, use it. If it does not fit you, leave it. Your calling is not for sale. What matters more is what happens when a clearer mind meets a different response. Imagine an ordinary morning. No thunder, no dramatic sign. You sit down, and for once there is less noise between what matters and what you do next. One task becomes clear. One decision becomes clear. One conversation becomes clear. That may not sound spectacular, but new trajectories are rarely built from spectacular moments alone. They are built when clarity becomes consistent action. You see what needs to be done, and then you do it without spending 3 days negotiating with yourself. Maybe that clarity helps you return to work you kept delaying. Maybe it helps you recognize that an opportunity is real instead of dismissing it from fear. Maybe it helps you stop confusing urgency with importance. Maybe it helps you finish one thing before opening 5 more. Picture this future. Not a fantasy where every problem disappears. A life where your mind is present enough to notice what belongs to you and steady enough to act without turning every choice into a crisis. The resource I described earlier remains in the description for anyone who recognized themselves in that receiver gap. No pressure, no fear. Let your decision come from clarity. Then return to the deeper current, because even the clearest mind can still walk backward if it keeps asking the old world for permission. You can know what to do and still hesitate because an old voice disapproves. You can feel peace and still doubt it because someone from your past does not understand. That is the final hold many people never notice. They break the pattern, but they keep checking whether the people attached to the pattern approve of who they are becoming. They leave the old road, then turn around every few steps to see whether the old road misses them. Chosen one, this next part matters. You do not need the past to confirm your transformation before you continue. You do not need the old room to clap when you leave it. You do not need the old version of your life to understand why you can no longer live there. There is one thing left to release before the new trajectory begins to feel like your own. It is the need to ask what you already outgrew for permission to keep growing. The old world is often the last place capable of validating the new you. That is why waiting for its approval creates so much confusion. You changed, but you keep looking backward for a witness. You want the person who hurt you to admit you were right. You want the boss who overlooked you to recognize what they missed. You want the friend who only knew your smaller version to notice how far you have come. These desires are human. They become dangerous when your next step depends on old approval. Chosen one, hear this clearly. You do not need the old road to admit it lost you. You only need to stop walking back to ASK. The moment you keep returning for validation, you reopen access. You start measuring your growth through eyes that were trained on your old identity. Then, one careless comment can make you question months of progress. One silence can make you wonder whether the boundary was wrong. So let this become practical. Bring one point of divergence to mind. The moment you said no, the moment you stopped chasing, the moment you stayed with your work after rejection, the moment you chose peace without needing everyone to agree. Close your eyes if it is safe to do so. Let your breathing slow. Picture two roads separating in front of you. One road is familiar because you have walked it many times. The other is not fully visible, but you know why you stepped toward it. You do not need to see the entire new road. You only need to recognize the next faithful step. Feel your feet where they are. Notice your chest. Notice your jaw. Let your body remember that uncertainty does not require retreat. Now say this quietly inside yourself. I do not need complete evidence to honor a truthful decision. I do not need old approval to protect a new boundary. I do not need yesterday to understand tomorrow before I keep moving. This is what it means to become the pattern breaker who stayed different. Not the person who changed once when emotions were high. The person who remains different when the trigger returns. The person who can feel the old pull without giving it the steering wheel. You are practicing loyalty to the person you are becoming. That loyalty can look quiet. It can look like finishing your work, going home, resting, saying no, saying yes, refusing to explain what no longer needs defending. And this is where the final declaration begins. Not as a performance, not as a promise that every outcome will arrive exactly as you want. It is a statement about who gets to direct your next response. The old pattern had a version of you it could predict. That version is no longer the only one available. You have seen another response. You have lived it. You have repeated it. And now you are ready to stop asking the past whether you are allowed to keep it. Chosen one. There are victories nobody sees. There are decisions no one applauds. There are nights when the greatest act of faith is simply refusing to become the person pain expected you to become again. So, before this message closes, release the need for immediate evidence. Release the need for everyone to understand. Release the need to know every mile of the road ahead. Release the need to turn one good decision into a guaranteed prophecy. You do not need any of that to honor what changed. What did you actually do? You gave an old moment a new response. What did that change? It created a point of divergence. Why has the full consequence not appeared yet? Because identity can shift before accumulated evidence catches up. And what is required now? Consistency and clarity. Not perfection, not constant certainty, not endless spiritual performance. Just the willingness to keep meeting familiar pressure with a truer response. So let this be your declaration. I do not rehearse what I have outgrown. I do not return for permission. I honor the decision that made me different. I choose clarity over compulsion. I remain different when the trigger returns. I can feel fear without obeying it. I can feel loneliness without reopening the wrong door. I can feel uncertainty without abandoning my direction. I can wait without turning, waiting into proof that nothing changed. I am not asking yesterday to bless tomorrow. I am not asking the old road to explain the new one. I am not asking people who benefited from my confusion to validate my clarity. I am the one the old path can no longer predict. That does not make me untouchable. It makes me responsible. I will keep choosing what is true. I will keep protecting what is healthy. I will keep learning when I am wrong. I will keep walking when the next step becomes clear. And if the evidence is slow, I will not panic. If the room is quiet, I will not assume I have been abandoned. If the old trigger returns, I will remember that it no longer has automatic access to the old response. Chosen one, this is the new trajectory, not a fantasy, not an escape from reality. It is a direction strengthened every time you refuse to let an old pattern choose for you. So if these words belong to you, let this final sentence mark the line. I walk the new path. May your mind remain clear. May your heart remain steady. May your choices become honest enough to carry the life you are building. May you have the courage to leave what is finished without needing it to agree. Amen. It is sealed.